All right, let's dive into Zero to One by
Yeah.
Peter Thiel, shall we? You shared this book with us, and I have to say I'm pretty excited to really explore it with you.
Yeah, I'm eager to dive in. Always love a good deep dive.
I know, right? And Thiel.
Yeah.
He's got some pretty, thought-provoking ideas, to say the
Oh,
least.
for sure. I mean, he definitely challenges a lot of what we kind of take for granted about building companies.
Yeah. Like right off the bat, he makes this distinction between two types of progress: horizontal progress and vertical progress.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So horizontal versus vertical, what's the difference? Why does he even bother making this distinction?
Well, think of it this way. He uses like globalization as an example of horizontal progress.
All right, so globalization.
It's essentially copying things that work, like think of China,
Right.
their rapid economic growth.
Huge growth.
But a lot of it's been based on like emulating Western models.
Right, right. Okay, so copying is horizontal. But what makes vertical progress so different then?
Vertical progress, that's all about technology.
Okay, I see. So new technology.
It's about doing something totally new, something that's not just an improvement, but like a whole new category.
Ah, got it. Like a completely new approach, not just a tweak.
Exactly. And that's where like Thiel believes the real progress comes in.
So if we apply this to someone who wants to build a really successful company today, are they better off like entering an existing market or trying to create a whole new market going from 0 to 1?
Yeah, well, I mean, Thiel would definitely say go for the new one. He argues that building a truly, valuable company requires creating something completely new. And this actually leads into another one of his ideas, which is kind of controversial:
Oh, let's hear it. Lay it on me.
the power of monopoly.
Monopoly, really? I mean, we're always taught that competition is good, right? That it drives innovation.
Right, right. That's the conventional wisdom for sure. But Thiel has a different take on it.
Okay, so why does he think monopolies are better for driving progress?
Well, he makes this point, like competition.
Hmm.
Think about like the airline industry.
Okay, yeah.
Everyone's trying to undercut each other on price.
Yeah, razor thin margins.
They barely make any profit.
Mhm.
So they don't really have a lot of room to invest in research and development and truly innovative idea.
Ah, I see. They're kind of stuck in a rut just trying to survive.
Yeah. He contrasts this with companies like Google, for instance.
Okay, Google. Yeah.
They've achieved kind of a dominant position in their market,
Right. They're the kings of search.
and they have much higher profit margins, which means they can like think long term,
They can actually play the long game
invest heavily in R&D.
and pursue those ambitious, crazy projects that most companies can't even dream of.
Right, exactly.
So are you saying that monopolies, at least in Thiel's view, can actually be good for progress?
Well, he calls them creative monopolies.
Creative monopolies.
Companies that are so good at what they do, they actually offer something that's like truly new and valuable, right? It's not just, squeezing profits out of an existing market.
They're actually expanding the pie.
Yeah. Google with search, Amazon with e-commerce, Apple with their consumer electronics. These are like his examples.
Makes sense. So if I have a business idea, how can I tell if it has this creative monopoly potential? What should I be looking for?
Well, he outlines 4 key characteristics that tend to mark like enduring monopolies.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the secrets.
The first one is what he calls proprietary technology.
Proprietary technology.
So, something that makes your product like really difficult to copy.
Okay, so something unique, a secret sauce.
Yeah. Like think of Google's search algorithms.
Right. They're notoriously secretive about those.
It's a huge barrier to entry for competitors.
Yeah, like a protective moat around their castle. So what's number 2?
Number 2 is what we call network effects.
Network effects. Okay, break that down for me.
This is where a product becomes more valuable as more people use it.
Right, the more the merrier.
So the classic example is Facebook.
Makes sense. The more friends you have, the more valuable it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It becomes like harder and harder for competitors to lure people away.
The network snowballs.
Exactly. And he talks about economies of scale.
Okay, economies of scale. Remind me what that means again.
This means as you produce more, your costs go down.
Okay, efficiency.
Right. Giving you a big advantage over smaller competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So Amazon, their massive logistics network,
Right, their delivery system is mind-boggling.
it's a perfect example, right?
Right.
Like they can ship products so much cheaper because of their scale.
Makes sense. And the last one.
And finally, branding.
Ah, The power of the brand.
creating this, like, strong, positive association in people's minds, like Apple, for example.
Apple, yeah, they're the masters of branding.
Absolutely. So it's not enough to just, have a great product.
Right, it's the whole package.
Building a lasting monopoly, it involves strategic decisions about technology, about those network effects, about scale, about how you build your brand.
Okay, so it sounds like it's not just about chasing any of these characteristics, blindly.
Right.
You have to do it strategically.
Exactly. And that's actually a really important point because Thiel warns against just becoming obsessed with growth for growth's sake.
Oh, interesting.
He's seen too many companies focus on those short-term metrics, like user numbers or revenue,
Sure.
but they don't think enough about long-term durability.
Yeah, they're just chasing the shiny object.
Exactly. And that can lead to problems.
What kind of problems? What are some of the dangers of, like, pursuing these characteristics the wrong way? Or without a clear vision for the future?
Well, he uses this metaphor. He says it's like building a fragile empire, on a shaky foundation.
So you might see some success early on, but
Yeah, but without that solid core, it's not going to last.
right, it's going to crumble eventually.
You end up chasing fads and building something that's, easily disrupted. So instead, he urges entrepreneurs to really think about building companies that can stand the test of time.
Build something that lasts, not just the flavor of the month.
Exactly, yeah.
What's interesting here is how Thiel challenges us to really think differently, and that reminds me of this really intriguing concept he introduces: secrets.
Yes.
It's fascinating how he approaches this. I mean, in today's world, it feels like there's so much information out there, It's easy to think there are no secrets left.
right, like it's all been discovered.
Yeah, everything's on Google. So how does Thiel challenge that? Why should we believe there are still secrets out there, hidden in plain sight?
Well, I think for him, it's about looking in the right places. And for Thiel, these aren't like magical hidden knowledge or anything.
Right.
He's talking about valuable truths that most people, just haven't bothered to look for or don't believe, really.
So these truths are out there, but they're kind of hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, exactly. He argues, like, there are still many secrets, particularly in areas like nutrition, energy, even like human behavior.
Okay, so if these secrets are hiding in plain sight, where should we even start looking?
Well, he suggests looking in areas where, conventional wisdom is wrong or where people are just kind of afraid to ask questions.
Places where we've become complacent, maybe.
Exactly. Like he used the example of nutrition, which he says is dominated more by, dogma and trends than by actual, like, rigorous scientific research.
So uncovering these secrets is really about challenging those assumptions and looking at things from a different perspective.
Exactly. It's about thinking critically and questioning the status quo.
That's powerful.
And for entrepreneurs, this can be a huge opportunity. If you can find a secret in an area that, others have overlooked, you have the potential to create something truly valuable. You're going from 0 to 1, finding that hidden potential.
I love how you tied that back to his core idea. Okay, so we've talked about creating something new, the power of monopolies. But what about the people building these companies? What does Thiel say about the founding teams, company culture, all that?
Well, for Thiel, that human element, it's super important.
Yeah, makes sense. It's people who build companies, after all.
He really emphasizes the importance of shared values within the founding team.
Shared value.
And a strong, like, pre-existing relationship.
So it's not just about finding brilliant people. It's about finding people who already have a connection.
Exactly.
And he even shares that anecdote about the PayPal mafia, right?
Yeah. That group of highly successful entrepreneurs.
Right. The PayPal mafia.
Well,
legendary.
They all worked together at PayPal back in the early days.
And they all went on to do amazing things. So why does he believe personal connections and these shared values are so important? Especially, in those early stages.
Well, he argues that without that strong founding team and a cohesive company culture, it's really difficult to maintain the dedication and focus,
Right. You need that shared sense of purpose to keep you going.
Yeah, actually. It's like a ship without a rudder.
Lost at sea.
It might have this powerful engine, but without a clear direction,
yeah, it's going to go nowhere.
you're going to end up lost.
So finding the right people is just as important as finding the right idea.
Absolutely. You need to create an environment where people can thrive.
A place where they feel like they belong.
Exactly. And that's...
I know what's so interesting about all this is how Thiel challenges us to rethink how we view like the relationship between people and machines.
Right.
Like in this age of, crazy advancements in technology, it's easy to worry about computers,
Mhm.
taking over jobs.
Yeah, the robots are coming for us.
Exactly. But Thiel kind of offers a different perspective, right?
Yeah, he does. He argues that computers, even with like all their incredible processing power, they're still fundamentally different from us.
Okay. Different how?
Well, like we excel at creativity,
Yep.
right? Judgment, complex decision-making, all those, uniquely human qualities.
Okay.
Whereas computers are much better at processing, tons of data and performing those repetitive tasks.
Right. They're like super efficient number crunchers.
Exactly.
But in a practical sense, then, if computers are so different from us, how can we use them? Like best leverage their capabilities to actually create value.
Well, Thiel believes the key is complementarity, not substitution.
Complementarity, not substitution. Okay, I like that.
And he actually uses his experience at PayPal as, like, a perfect example of this.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
They had this huge problem with credit card fraud,
Yeah, fraud is a nightmare.
losing, like, millions of dollars every month.
Wow.
So their first instinct was to try and, like, automate a solution.
Yeah, make the computers do the work.
Using algorithms to detect fraudulent transactions.
Seems logical. Did it work?
Well, it worked, like, partially,
Mm-hmm.
but they realized something.
What's that?
While the algorithms were good at, like, spotting certain patterns, they couldn't replace the human element.
Oh, interesting.
They needed a combination of that, smart technology and human analysts.
Okay.
People who could understand the nuances of fraud, make judgment calls,
Yeah.
stuff that the computers just couldn't do.
The human touch. So the solution wasn't about replacing humans with machines, but like finding ways for them to work together.
Exactly. And actually, that realization led to the creation of Palantir.
Palantir, the data analytics company, right?
Yeah. It's a company that Thiel co-founded.
That makes sense.
They build software that helps human analysts make sense of, like, those huge, complex data sets.
So it's all about empowering human decision making.
Right. With the help of those powerful tools.
That's fascinating. It's almost like this idea of complementarity extends beyond individual companies, like to the whole economy. If computers are tools that can, actually augment human capabilities,
Right.
the future of work might not be about humans versus machines, but more like humans working with machines.
Exactly. And that's a much more optimistic vision
Right.
than some of those, like, dystopian scenarios we hear about.
Right, the robots taking over the world.
Exactly.
But it also highlights, the importance of really focusing on those uniquely human skills.
Right. The things that computers can't replicate.
Exactly. And that makes me think of another point that Thiel makes, this idea of timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He uses that example of the clean tech bubble back in the 2000s to show how even well-intentioned ideas,
Right.
can fail if they're just not pursued at the right time.
It's a good cautionary tale. Like, the clean tech industry had attracted tons of investment,
Yeah. Everyone was excited about clean energy.
But a lot of those companies, they ended up failing. They kind of, like, overestimated the market demand for their products.
They thought the market was ready for it, but it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And they underestimated the challenges of, like, scaling their technology.
It's like they got ahead of themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
So what were like the big mistakes that those clean tech companies made, according to Thiel at least?
Well, he points out a few, but one of the most common was, failing to understand distribution.
Distribution. So like actually getting the product into the hands of customers.
Yeah. They focused so much on building this cool technology,
Right.
but they didn't really think about, how to get it to customers.
It's like building a fancy car but forgetting the engine.
Right, exactly. And they also tended to overestimate the size of the market,
Oh, interesting.
assuming that just because there was a need for clean energy, everyone would be, like, ready to jump on board.
Yeah, they figured, hey, everyone wants clean energy there.
Right, but they forgot that even in a huge market, you still need to convince people to choose your product over others.
You need to stand out.
You need a really compelling value proposition, not just good intentions.
That makes sense. And it's interesting how Thiel contrasts the clean tech industry with Tesla,
Yeah.
one of the few companies from that era that actually, really took off.
Right, a huge success story.
So for him, Tesla's kind of a case study in getting the timing right.
Exactly.
They didn't just ride that, wave of enthusiasm for clean energy. They actually built something that lasted.
Right.
So what did Tesla do differently? What were those key factors that made them stand out?
Well, first of all, They focused on building a product that was actually better, you
That's
know?
good.
It offered a real improvement over what was already out there.
Not just a marginal improvement.
Yeah. Like their cars, they weren't just green, right?
Okay.
They're also high performance, stylish, desirable. They appealed to people who, weren't necessarily just like super environmentally conscious.
So they broadened their appeal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they didn't try to like do everything at once.
All right.
They started with a small, well-defined niche, which was like those high-end sports cars.
Okay, smart. Prove the concept first.
Right. And then they gradually expanded from there.
Then they also had Elon Musk, right?
Yes.
Thiel talks about him, as both a brilliant engineer and like a master salesman.
Yeah, a unique combination.
He knew how to build the product and also like get people excited about it.
Right. That leadership element is so crucial.
Mhm.
And they were also brilliant with marketing and branding.
Branding. We talked about that earlier.
Right. Like Musk really understood how to create a brand that wasn't just about, clean energy, but also about style, performance, this vision of the future.
Yeah, he tapped into that sense of cool and aspiration.
Exactly. So Tesla's success, it's like this counter narrative to the clean tech bubble. It shows that you can build a successful clean energy company.
Right.
But it takes more than just good intentions, right? You've got to get the fundamentals right. The technology, the team, the timing, the distribution.
Mm-hmm. You have to have a plan. It can't just be about, saving the planet.
Right. It's a good reminder that building a successful company, it's not just about, like, chasing trends.
Right, or jumping on the bandwagon.
You have to think deeply about, like, what problem are you solving? What value are you creating? How are you going to make this last?
Build something sustainable.
Exactly.
And that makes me think of another thing. Thiel explores the founders themselves, right? He argues that they're often these unusual people, right?
Definitely.
They have this, like, unique combination of traits.
Yeah, it's like a paradox.
Right. Like, they're both insiders and outsiders. They're rebels, but also, like, conformists in a way.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So why are founders so often, like, these enigmatic figures?
Well, Thiel suggests it might be because of, the challenges they face.
Right.
Like building a company from scratch.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
It's super demanding. It requires, like, vision, determination, resilience.
Yeah.
It's a path filled with setbacks, right?
Sure, you're constantly hitting roadblocks.
And it demands this, like, mental toughness that most people just don't have.
It takes a certain kind of person to handle that pressure,
Yeah.
and they're under constant scrutiny, right?
Wow, yeah.
Like the market's judging them, the public's judging them. They have to be visionaries and, like really sharp business people.
A lot to handle.
And all of this in a world that's constantly changing.
Right,
It's
exactly.
no wonder that, founders often develop these like big personalities
Right.
and like do things their own way.
They're operating in this environment that rewards, boldness.
You got to be willing to take risks.
And they're constantly having to, like, prove themselves and their ideas. And to illustrate this point, Thiel uses this really interesting analogy, actually. He compares founders to scapegoats.
Scapegoats, that's a strong word.
Yeah, it's a little provocative for sure.
Yeah.
But I think he's trying to make a point about, how societies throughout history have projected their hopes and fears onto these, like, charismatic individuals, right?
Yeah.
Celebrating them in good times, blaming them when things go wrong.
So the founder becomes the symbol.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's easy to see that dynamic playing out in the tech world today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like founders are heroes when their companies succeed,
Right.
but they can quickly become villains when things go south.
Yeah.
Think about like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
They've all been both celebrated and condemned, right?
Exactly. It's that love-hate relationship we have with technology.
Right. We're both fascinated by it and kind of scared of it.
Exactly. And I think Thiel is suggesting that we see founders as both saviors and scapegoats because we have those mixed feelings about technology.
So it's not just about them, it's about us projecting our own anxieties onto them.
Right. Like, we're amazed by, its potential to change our lives, but also kind of fearful of the consequences.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. And it leads to another concept that Thiel explores, this idea of the singularity.
Oh, the singularity. Now we're getting into the really heady stuff.
Right. For those who aren't familiar, it's this idea of, like, a point in time when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence.
Right. When computers basically become smarter than us.
Exactly. And it leads to this, like, profound and unpredictable transformation of society. It's a topic that gets people talking,
Teal.
sparks a lot of debate.
But Thiel doesn't spend a lot of time on it, does he?
No, he doesn't. He kind of acknowledges the possibility, but he argues that it's this, like, distant, uncertain future.
Okay, so not something to worry about right now.
Right. For him, what's important is the choice we face today.
Okay.
Do we embrace the potential of technology to create something better, or do we, kind of give in to fear?
Huh. So it's not about predicting the future, but about, like, choosing what kind of future we want.
Exactly. It's not about just letting the future happen to us.
It's about actively shaping it.
Right. And that brings us back to this idea of, definite optimism.
Right. You mentioned that earlier. Can you remind me what that is again? How does it differ from, like, just regular optimism?
Sure. Definite optimism, it's not just about blindly hoping for the best.
Okay.
It's about believing that the future is fundamentally different from the present
Yeah.
and that we can shape it through our actions.
So it's not passive, it's active.
Exactly. It's a commitment to building that future, not just wishing for it.
I like that. So it's about taking action, taking control.
Right. It's about rejecting this, like, indefinite optimism that's so common today, that vague hope for a better future without actually doing anything to create it.
Just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Exactly. Thiel's arguing that we need to shift from a mindset of hoping to a mindset of building.
That's where the real magic happens. That's where the real magic happens. That's a good way to put it. It sounds like, this definite optimism, it's a really powerful force. It's about believing in, like, our own agency, right? Our ability to shape things. But I'm curious, in terms of leadership, like, who are these people, the ones who embody this definite optimism and actually drive progress forward?
Well, Thiel thinks we need more founders who are willing to, like, really think big, challenge conventional wisdom, and, really take risks, the kind that lead to, like, breakthroughs.
Okay, the risk takers, the innovators. Got it. But how can you tell the difference, between a definite optimist and someone who's just, like, hopeful or maybe even a little naive?
Well, a definite optimist doesn't just wish for a better world. They actually roll up their sleeves and get to work, right? Like, they have that clear vision of the future they want to build, and they're willing to do what it takes. The hard work, the risks, all of it.
So it's about action, not just words.
Yeah. They don't, like, shy away from problems or let setbacks stop them.
Right. They have that grit, that determination.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to challenge the status quo. Think for themselves.
Yeah.
Pursue that vision even when other people doubt them.
Yeah, they have that courage to be different.
Exactly.
It's interesting, how this idea of definite optimism ties back to everything we've been talking about,
Yeah.
Going from 0 to 1, building those monopolies. It seems like they all need that same kind of, like, bold mindset, looking ahead, not being afraid.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
to create something truly new, something valuable, you got to believe it's possible, even when everyone else thinks you're crazy.
Right. It takes a certain amount of faith.
Yeah. And to build a lasting monopoly, you need that conviction to keep going, even when others doubt you or try to copy you.
So it's about having that courage to be a pioneer, to go
Yeah.
your own way.
Yeah. And Thiel's book, it's full of stories, of founders who faced, like, huge challenges, setbacks, all kinds of stuff. But they kept going because they wouldn't give up on their vision. They had that belief. Yeah. So, after this deep dive into 0 to 1, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway? What's really resonated with you?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's that reminder, we all have a choice about the future. We can just sit back and let it happen, or we can actually do something,
Yeah.
to shape it, to make it what we want it to be.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
It's about not being afraid to dream big, to really go for it.
I love that. And Thiel, he challenges us to ask ourselves a really basic question. What kind of future do we want? Do we want one of, like, stagnation or a future of progress?
That's a big question, a fundamental question.
Yeah, and it's a choice we all got to make.
And that's a great note to leave our listener on, I think.
Yeah.
The future isn't set in stone. It's up to each of us to decide how we want to contribute, how we want to shape it.
Exactly.
So to our listener out there, after this deep dive into Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, what are you thinking? What ideas have really stuck with you? What possibilities are you seeing? We hope this exploration has given you, like, a fresh perspective and inspired you to think differently about, the world and your place in it.